What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Makina gaming channel. It's me, your boy Makina, coming to you with another gaming review. Today we'll be taking a look at 007 First Light, the most recent iteration of one of Hollywood's most iconic movie figures. Much like the movies, there have been many different installments of 007 games, stemming all the way back to the 80s. Yup, that's right, one of the very first 007 games came out on the Atari, which is nothing to write home about by today's standards, but still pretty interesting to know. There have been a total of 25 James Bond games released since the 80s, with some standing out more than others. GoldenEye for the Nintendo 64 comes to mind, along with the PS3 version GoldenEye Reloaded. The last one that I personally remembered playing through was 007 Bloodstone for the PS3, which I found to be pretty fun actually. Average, but fun. Needless to say, IO Interactive, the developer of our latest 007 game, had a lot of inspiration to draw from, with a ton of material already out there to try to deliver a great game. And overall, I feel like they really did. 007 First Light is a game that's easy to love, even though it has a few flaws here and there. When making a video game about one of the most legendary spy characters in all of movie history, the one thing you have to make sure of is that you get his persona just right. This game starts you off as a young James Bond, right before he gets recruited by MI6. After his chopper was shot down and after nearly drowning in the ocean, James finds himself acting in accordance with the MI6 as part of a retrieval operation. Tasked with saving some missing personnel and with being MI6's eyes and ears on the ground, Bond finds himself in a pretty hairy situation. A few heroic actions here and there, and several explosions later, and Bond finds himself being recruited by the head of MI6 herself. Because the story is pretty easy to spoil, I won't tell you exactly what comes next, but I will say that the game does a great job of setting the tone early for what's to come. The story hit almost every note of what I would expect from an action-adventure game. It has some romance, some cool twists and turns, phenomenal dialogue, great action sequences, and more. The story is linear with some small deviances here and there, and it's easy to understand, but not so simple that it's not interesting. I personally really enjoyed the premise here. The idea that artificial intelligence can make us complacent really resonated with me, especially with how the world is today. And it's only right that a game that features James Bond takes that simple premise and takes it to the extreme. Unlike 007 Bloodstone, the story in this game isn't just about over-the-top action. Don't get me wrong, you do get plenty of that, but what I was really impressed by was the pacing. The build-up between each section right before you get into the action is what really made the action sequences within the story that much more fun. Mission debriefing made you feel like an actual spy, and when playing through a story mission, the dialogue between you and your supporting cast really showcased Bond's personality. James Bond is supposed to be clever, witty, sarcastic, a bit of a smartass, but he's also someone who goes against the grain and who's a little unorthodox in his approach to things. That's exactly what you get here. They portrayed his character just right in my opinion, which I was really happy to see. The supporting cast was also pretty good with all things considered. They tried to give some of them a bit more depth with some cool backstories, but for the most part, they were still pretty generic, which I kind of expected to be the case when I started this game. With that said, in my opinion, it's almost a good thing that they kept them more on the generic side. If they tried to go all out with some of the side characters in the story, I feel like it would have taken attention away from the star of the show, and the game would have suffered a bit for it. What you get within this 16 to 20 hour campaign as far as character development was just right to me, and overall they did a great job keeping the main character in the spotlight for the majority of the game. Now, for as much as I did enjoy the narrative, I do have to point out that there was definitely some sections that felt rushed to me. There were moments in the game's story that just weren't properly fleshed out. Had these parts been paced a little bit more appropriately, the narrative would have been more impressive to me. Some character interactions would have also been more believable if they would have extended some cutscenes as well. In a narrative-driven game, minor details like this can be the difference between a good story and a great one. Either way, I still think you get a complete package here in terms of the story, and I don't think you'd be disappointed with the narrative overall. It's fair to say that an agent is only as good as his gadgets, and in this game there's no exception. The gameplay in 007 First Light is a beautiful blend of hand-to-hand combat, excellent gunplay, and stealth. Beginning with the hand-to-hand combat, you get a pretty good variety of moves here. Think of Uncharted's hand-to-hand combat, but with the intensity of The Last of Us's hand-to-hand combat. Each punch felt heavy, and the combos you were able to execute really led to some cool in-game moments. There were different combos that you were able to take advantage of as well. You could punch enemies in the gut, kick them to break their blocking posture, and more. You could grab enemies and slam them into walls, knee them in the face. There were throwables in the game that you were able to use if available in the area you were fighting in. You could bum rush enemies and tackle them into generators. You could tackle enemies over ledges and land on them. If your gun ran out of bullets, you had the option to throw your gun at an enemy. The finishers all look seamless, and with good timing, you could have really smooth combat sequences. The hand-to-hand combat was also more challenging than I expected, especially on the hardest difficulty, which is the difficulty that I chose to play on. Your two defensive maneuvers were to either dodge or parry an incoming blow to counter, and surprisingly, you did need to have at least decent timing in order to win. I was expecting Bond to be invulnerable in this game, but surprisingly enough, the enemies did present a good challenge, especially during gunfights. Gunfights were just as engaging as the hand-to-hand combat. Gunplay felt smooth and fast, and most importantly felt intense, the way you'd expect them to feel when the fate of MI6 rests in your hands. The game also introduces a really cool focusing mechanic that made enemy kills feel super satisfying. Performing stealth takedowns, completing different objectives, and killing enemies effectively and efficiently built up your instinct, which then allowed you to slow everything down so you can focus your next shot. During gunfights, besides headshots, you could shoot their weapons out of their hands or shoot them in the legs and then swiftly take them down. And if that weren't enough, you could also shoot different things in the environment to take enemies out. Word to the wise, when facing multiple hostiles at once, looking for things to shoot in the environment is highly effective and can usually turn things around for you. If playing the game on a higher difficulty like I did, this is something that you'll see yourself doing on the regular. Now, can you really call yourself the world's greatest spy if you didn't have cool gadgets? Luckily, 007 First Light gives us a decent amount of gadgets to use for different encounters. Each one helps you neutralize enemies with ease and in different ways, as long as you use them in the right way. Some of the gadgets allowed you to disorient enemies for quicker escapes. Others allowed you to access different parts of the level, which you could then use to get to objectives in different ways. You had a cool watch that allowed you to hack different things around you to distract or even kill your enemies as well. All really cool stuff. This hacking mechanic really meshed well with the combat, especially the stealth. Maybe some people who have played the game would have preferred to have more gadgets, but to me, the fact that everything was concise is what made the gameplay better. It wasn't overkill. The gameplay was standard, but executed really well, and they gave you just the right amount of tools for you to get the most out of the campaign, in my opinion. I really like the fact that the game gives you some variety in how you can engage some of these enemies. I had some really fun moments chaining different things together to take enemies out, and I think you will too if you give this one a chance. Now let's backtrack and talk about the stealth for a minute. If you were expecting this game to have an innovative stealth system, then I'm sorry to disappoint you, but it doesn't. That doesn't mean that the stealth isn't good. I actually think that what they have here is just fine, other than how blissfully unaware enemies are and how easily they're lured in for an attack. I get why they make enemy AI like this in games that have stealth, but I just really wish there was a little bit more depth to it all. Moments can still feel intense, and I do think that as the game progresses, the stealth gets a little better, but again, what really bothers me is how dumb the enemy AI can be at times. I think the stealth in this game could have been better if the developers would have given enemies more ways to find you or detect you if you were in the area. I think things would have been more challenging, and this would have made you think a bit more about how you wanted to engage enemies if you were trying to engage them quietly. Still, stealth takedowns and clearing out rooms full of enemies quietly was really satisfying.
You're back. Rough night.
Still early. Take you up on that drink now.
I think you'll like this. Well?
I think that might be the best part of the night so far.
The world of 007 First Light was as enjoyable as I think it could have been. The game had good visuals and the graphics were up to par with what you'd expect. But what I was really impressed with was the level design. Even though the game was linear, the developers did a great job mixing things up. Some sections were more action focused, while other sections required a more patient approach to things. During these sections, you'd have a chance to explore the area you were in and do more espionage type of work. Eavesdropping on some conversations might reveal new clues on how to access restricted areas. You could distract security personnel to get them to move from their post so you can snoop around. There were a couple of cool puzzles to solve, and there were even some dialogue options that would reveal clues about what you could do to move on to the next area of the game. These are actually the sections that I've heard some people complain about the most because they slowed the game down, and while I do agree that some of these sections do interrupt some of the action, I also think they were necessary. These are the sections where Bond got to showcase a little more of who he is as a character. You know, the cleverness and the quick sarcastic comebacks that he would have during dialogue. But this was also the game's way to make you feel like you were an actual spy. And also, to me, this is where the buildup of the mission actually occurred. These sections, to me, built the narrative up some and made the game feel more narrative driven rather than just a typical action game. I understand that some people would have preferred for it to be done differently, but to me it was done right. The game also took you all over the world, which was awesome to see. I enjoyed traversing and even driving through some of the different levels. That's right, you get to use vehicles in this game too, which added just another layer of immersion to me. The levels felt vibrant and alive, and there was great attention to detail here. The game makes you feel like you're an operative on the field, and I loved it. The fact that the game took you all over the world gave it a chance to show you different dynamic weather, different lighting, different visuals, cool settings. I mean, it just added to the whole lore of being a spy. I really enjoyed it. All in all, IO Interactive did a great job with this game. The soundtrack was spot on. I loved the sound effects, they were great. The game had great visuals like I just mentioned, great over-the-top action. The game had awesome gadgets, cool outfits, awesome vehicles, and more. The hand-to-hand combat was, again, surprisingly more in-depth than I thought it would be. The gunplay was excellent, and most importantly, the game had a really cool narrative. I do think, however, that some parts of the game could have been fleshed out a little bit better. At times it felt like some parts, were just rushed a little. The stealth, although fun, wasn't really anything super innovative, so I kind of got to dock the game there. I did enjoy using the gadgets to their fullest potential during these sections of the game, but the enemies were so unaware that sometimes using your gadgets felt like an afterthought because you didn't really need them at times. Giving the enemies more ways to track you down, or maybe even giving us different types of enemies that couldn't be taken down with stealth, could have gone a long way in these sections. Besides those things, like I said, IO Interactive really did deliver a great game. For those reasons, I'm giving 007 First Light an 8.5 out of 10. If you haven't already picked this one up, do yourself a favor and buy it. You won't regret it. It's fun. It's easy to get into, it's engaging, and overall, just a great experience. Alright guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another video. I really appreciate you guys supporting the channel. If you have any thoughts on the game or the review and ways that I can improve, make sure to leave your comments in the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and as always, be on the lookout for another video from your boy, Makina. See you guys on the next one. Peace.